Hi friends, welcome back to another vlog. Wow, that bird was screaming. I wonder if you can hear that. Welcome back to another one of my silly little vlogs. I'm Rain. I'm a mixed media artist from the Midwest. And yeah, just wanted to bring you guys along for a fun little week of hanging out with me. We're going to go to a show. We're going to make a flyer for another show and just various fun little activities in my life. So I hope you enjoy, and let's just get into it. Okay guys, so now let's get into some art. So I was asked to make a flyer for a show, and the prompt I was given was yucky. So I came up with the sketch that you just saw, and I decided the best way to make this happen would be a mixed media collage, mainly just made out of papers that I have painted with acrylic paint. So first things first is what inspired this being a collage, and that's the strawberries. So I had to paint a couple more sheets of paper. I didn't have the right colors in my stash. Most of my papers that are painted are just with whatever leftover paint I have after using acrylic paint. This teal was leftover from paper that I painted to be gift wrapped for one of my friends who loves this color and loves turtles. So that's why there was little turtles on it. And I'm using this to make a little basket for the strawberries, like that classic little teal woven basket. I guess they're not usually actually woven, but you know what I'm talking about. Do strawberries even come in these anymore? I don't know. I usually just get ones that come in a little plastic case. But anyway, that's the vision we're going for. So just using a lot of glue stick and getting it all over my desk, and needed to cut out one more little strip to complete it. And then I didn't want the empty space showing through, so I just did a piece of the darkest red that I had. So that'll look like the strawberries. And here's the little strawberry tops. So gotta glue on each little strawberry top, which these were probably the part that took the longest to cut out, because obviously, I mean, look at them. And I switched to Elmer's glue for this, and pretty much the rest of the project, I think I was just using liquid glue for. Not that it really makes a difference, but I didn't want to try to put glue stick on those little pieces because it would just get caught in all the crevices. And now for the little Frankenstein head in a jar, I just drew the shape of the head with marker on the back and cut it out. I ended up making the neck a little bit thinner, I think, if I'm remembering correctly. And for the jar, I just traced around the head so I can make sure the jar was actually big enough to hold the head and have a little bit of empty space. This was not just dark white paper. I used some really watered down gray. And then I wanted to add some details to Frankenstein's face. So first of all, I thought he would have some, hollow shadowed eyes with little bags under his eyes. So I just used my oil pastels for that and blended it in and just kept adding more blue and purple until it felt right. Oh, and some pink. Okay, here we go, pink. You always got to have neon pink in everything. And there's neon pink on the strawberries too, as you can see from the background. But yeah, the Frankenstein head, I feel like wasn't quite as cute as my sketch, but I still think he turned out pretty cute. But we can't see how he turned out yet. We're still working on it. So I drew in his eyes with oil pastel as well, and then his little mouth and some details for his ears. And I added a little bit of neon green to highlight. And then I wanted a strip of stitches across his forehead. And then for the jar, obviously there needs to be some liquid in the jar to preserve him. So I just smeared on some more neon green, a little bit of a neon yellow as well, and then some teal and darker green to the bottom to give it some depth. I was just being messy and scribbly, and smeared it a lot until it felt right. And then for the little neck sticking out of his bone, I did a cream piece of paper but added some white on top to give it some depth and shading. But I decided that little bone was way too big because it's just supposed to look like a neck bone. So cut that down a little bit smaller and got my guy good to be dropped into his jar. So glued him in, and then we're skipping back over to the strawberries now. Now that they've dried, I'm gonna just add some seeds with oil pastel as well. Just little yellow seeds on the ripest ones, and then the two lighter pink ones that are a little bit unripe, I added a little bit of green seeds as well. I thought that was pretty cute. Really happy with how these strawberries turned out. But they're not done yet because they're in the fridge with Frankenstein and they got a little moldy. So I just tore up some cotton ball and glued it onto them to become mold. So yeah, this idea of doing the moldy strawberries was what inspired the whole fridge motif or whatever. And this is why I decided to do it as a mixed media collage. So this is the first flyer I've done that is like completely traditional. A lot of the flyers I do have like mostly traditionally drawn elements, but are still edited together digitally at the end. But yeah, this flyer I did completely traditionally, even the lettering, which was a little bit scary doing it straight on the flyer, but we're not there yet. We're still glue and mold. Every strawberry needs to be moldy. And I was just doing my best to try to like make it look natural, just using small little bits. And just, I didn't use any sort of reference picture for the strawberries or anything in this flyer. But I have ADHD, so I have plenty of experience with moldy strawberries. And now let's pick out a little piece of embroidery floss and trim it up into little pieces so we can go back to our Frankenstein and add those stitches on his forehead. So I wanted those to, have texture like real thread. So how else to achieve that but to cut up little pieces of embroidery floss and glue them on. And the jar, of course, needs a lid. We can't let him escape, so got to put a lid on the jar with that silver. And then I'm just using some more pages that are painted like slightly off-white to make shelves. And then I realized I needed a base to glue this all on. So this is just a sheet of like the really thin packing paper. My grandpa bought me 2 whole boxes of this packing paper last time I moved, so I have a lot of it, and I use it quite frequently. So just made a gray base, and this is one of my favorite parts that I did. So I painted this sheet of plastic with like some watered down neon yellow, and I also sprayed it with like semi-glossy sealant to give it a little bit more texture so it wasn't see-through. And yeah, that was like the water in the jar or formaldehyde, whatever it is. And then the mold on the strawberries can't just be white. So I just smeared some green oil pastels right on my fingers, and then I rubbed it on the cotton balls, which I kind of wish I'd tried to like make the cotton balls green beforehand. When I first thought of doing this, my plan was to make the mold green using soft pastels, like the dust from soft pastels, but I was too lazy to get those out. I already have my oil pastels out, so that's what I did. But when I was like rubbing on the cotton to transfer the color, it kind of changed the texture of it in some places, but it wasn't too bad. It still turned out how I wanted, and yeah, it had just a little tinge of green, but there you can see like it's kind of sticking to, or like it's just kind of making the cotton like stick in one place where the glue is the heaviest, instead of just staying light and fluffy. But I still think it ended up with the right moldy texture that we were looking for. But yeah, I was just so pleased with how these strawberries came out. It's really cool when you have a vision for something that's kind of experimental and it ends up coming out how you envisioned. So yeah, there you could really see it like kind of bunching up. So I just added some more, and I pre-colored that. And then I was ready to put everything together. So here's our little shelves, and I added a little silver border to each of the shelves and just kind of placing things and hoping for the best. And once I was doing these shelves, I was kind of thinking that it would be cool to have the information written in like maybe glue that was combined with red paint to look like spilled ketchup or something. But I didn't end up going with that, but it would have been cool, I think. And felt like there needed to be some backing wall to the top of the fridge to make it look like a fridge rather than 3 trapezoids on top of each other. But yeah, this was all just different shades of gray, and now I can start adding pieces in. So here's our little Frankenstein head in the jar, and still need to glue on his lid because there wasn't a lot of room to actually glue that onto the jar itself. It needed to be more above that. And I was planning on putting both things next to each other, but I ended up putting the strawberries on the second level just because that worked best, and just doing my best to kind of place all the strawberries in here in a way that shows them off, especially the pink one, since I only had one pink one. But I didn't really have like an exact plan for the layout of this as I was making them. I just hoped that they would all fit together, and they did. I wanted them to be kind of tucked into the little box they're in, so looks natural, but this little pink one ended up sticking out of the box, and the strawberries are just so perfect. So here's the finished piece with all the information added. I just wrote that with fountain pen. And then first thing the next morning, I took it to scan it at the library, and I had to stop into the art store too. I have been trying not to buy too many new art supplies, but I definitely needed a couple oil pastels to fill in some gaps. I also got this really cute nail polish that looks like Kraft mac and cheese. This is not what I was planning on getting. I really wanted to get Flirty Flutters by Essie, which looks like Gap Jewel, which I saw in a Vintage Dusty's video and fell in love with. But yeah, while we were out and about, we also stopped at the mall, and I got another Tama blind bag because they had them in stock at Barnes & Noble again after I'd bought out all of the first round. And I got a duplicate, but he's still cute, so still happy with that. And now I'm going to open up my oil pastels really carefully since I just painted my nails. Probably hadn't put top coat on yet at that point, but this it's not charcoal in the box, just 4 little pastels. So I needed a darker shade of gray, and I wanted kind of a color that was like kind of close to my skin tone, but didn't quite find that. But I got a light yellow and a light pink and a light purple. Those are all colors that I've been having to mix a lot, which is fun, but sometimes you need a little bit more precision with the colors, so mixing them with your finger doesn't always work. Okay, so that's gonna wrap up this vlog. So thank you so much for watching. I really appreciate it, and I hope you enjoyed. And yeah, I hope to see you again here soon. So